The question that shouldn't be asked but must be. They told me not to ask this question. They said, war is complicated. Don't mix it with Jesus. But I couldn't help myself, because when the bombs fell, when the headlines screamed Iran, Israel, Russia, Ukraine, when children cried in the arms of bloodied mothers, I had one desperate question in my heart. What would Jesus say about all this? Not what the politicians say, not what the generals say, not what the world says, but what would Jesus, the Prince of Peace, say about war? Before we go any further, I want to ask you something. If you've ever wrestled with this tension, faith and war, love and violence, I invite you to subscribe and stay with us. You won't want to miss what comes next. I remember the first time I opened the Bible to find the answers, and I was shocked because Jesus didn't always say what I expected. Matthew 10:34 stopped me cold. Do not think that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I have not come to bring peace, but a sword. A sword? From Jesus? Isn't he the one who said, love your enemies? Isn't he the one who healed a soldier's ear as he was being arrested? How could this be? I felt like I was staring into a contradiction, but as I dug deeper, I found something most people miss. Jesus was never inconsistent. We just never understood the depth of his war. Pope Benedict XVI once said, Jesus is not a pacifist in the way the world defines it. He brings peace, but only by destroying the false peace of sin and lies. And that, my friend, is the beginning of the fire. Because the war Jesus fights isn't the war we see on the news, but it's more real, more dangerous, and far more eternal. So stay with me, because the next part will shake the ground you stand on. Jesus doesn't just comment on war, he declares one. Subscribe if you haven't yet, because what you're about to see might just flip your understanding of Scripture upside down. The war behind all wars. You see, when Jesus said, I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. He wasn't talking about tanks, missiles, or fighter jets. He was talking about the collision between truth and deception, between light and darkness, between God's kingdom and the dominion of evil. This is where most people misunderstand the gospel. Jesus didn't come to negotiate with darkness. He came to expose it and then destroy it. Ephesians 6 verse 12 tells us plainly, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world. That's why Pope John Paul II once said, the real battlefield is not in the Middle East or Europe. It's the human soul. And suddenly it all made sense to me. The war we see on the outside is only the shadow. The real battle is spirit, and Jesus waged it first. Remember the scene in the Garden of Gethsemane? Roman soldiers arrive with swords. Peter reacts like any man would. He pulls his own and slashes. But Jesus, he tells Peter to put the sword away. Then he heals the soldier's ear, because his battle wasn't against Rome. It wasn't even against the people who nailed him to the cross. It was against sin itself, against death, against the ancient war that began in heaven when Lucifer fell. Revelation 12:7-9 says, and there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon. It wasn't political, it wasn't economic, it was spiritual, and it still is. And that's why Jesus didn't come to crush nations, but to redeem hearts. But here's the part that shook me to the core. Jesus declared war by sacrificing himself, not by taking lives, but by giving his. He won not with violence, but with blood, his own. As St. Augustine said, the peace that Jesus brings is not the absence of conflict, but the presence of righteousness. So what does this mean for the wars we see today? The conflicts between Iran and Israel, the rise of nations, the fall of empires? Are they meaningless? No, but they are not ultimate, because Jesus didn't come to take sides between nations. He came to claim territory in your soul. And if you're still with me, if this is stirring something in you, then hit that subscribe button, because in the final part, we're going to ask a dangerous question. What does this war mean for you? Because the moment you follow Jesus, you step onto a battlefield that's more real than any war on earth. The battle within and what Jesus asks of you. So now we come to the hardest truth of all. It's not just about Iran. It's not just about Israel. It's not about bombs, missiles, or empires rising and falling. It's about you. You see, Jesus didn't just point to the war out there. He pointed to the war in here, in your chest, in your thoughts, in the battle between what you know is right and what you still choose to do. He said in Matthew 5:9, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God." But what kind of peace was he talking about? Not comfort, not safety, not silence. Peace in the Bible means wholeness. It means reconciliation with God. It means bringing heaven's truth into a world of chaos. And that, my friend, is dangerous work. The late pastor and martyr Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who stood up against Hitler, once said, "When Christ calls a man, he bids him come and die. Not die in war with tanks or swords, but to die to pride, to die to hatred, to die to fear." Because make no mistake, following Jesus is not neutral. It's a declaration of war against sin, against corruption, against the principalities that still hold our world in chains. And when you say yes to Jesus, you don't escape the battlefield. You finally join the real one, the one that matters, the one where love is your weapon and truth is your shield. That's why he said in Luke 93, "If anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me." Not once, not in theory, daily. Because the real war, the war Jesus spoke of, is not just one that happens, it's one you choose to fight every single day. So here's the question Jesus leaves you with. Will you follow him into that war? Will you lay down your own sword and pick up his cross? Will you stop fighting for the things of this world and start fighting for the kingdom? Not through violence, not through politics, but through radical love, relentless truth, and a heart fully surrendered. And maybe, just maybe, the wars we see outside will begin to fade when the war inside us is finally won. So if this video shook something loose in your soul, if it made you look deeper at the words of Jesus, if it reminded you that his kingdom is not of this world, then subscribe. Stay with us, because this is just the beginning. There's more war to fight, more truth to discover, and more of him to know. Until next time, stand firm, love deeply, and fight with light. God bless you.